Peace in from the white holes of Dakota Territory, United States of Authors. And I say white because it is now snowing enough so that we have a white landscape once again. There were some days where down on the prairies it was in the 60s and 70s. No longer. It's going to get down near 0 degrees Fahrenheit here tonight. And I've got my little old number 9 all ready to endure the cold by plugging it in with a heater that I had to have installed to keep the pipes warm. I don't know if it's going to need it at 0 degrees, but it'll be kinder and gentler on the thing in the morning. And I'm going to need to be kind and gentle in the morning because I'm seeing another doctor. Well, actually, it's not a doctor, it's a counselor, and she's a cool lady. She's kind of helping me out with the stuff between my ears, and God knows that I need all the help I can get there. But the point of this little ditty has to do with the early years of my authorship, when I discovered a corporation in Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania, called Tab Books, T-A-B, all in capital letters. I believe it originally stood for Technical Advisory Board or something like that. It had been around for a while, and it published books about electronics, hobby books about electronics primarily. And that being my strong field, naturally I proposed something to them completely unrelated, relativity. And they accepted it, and it became published, and its title was Understanding Einstein's Theories of Relativity, Man's New Perspective on the Cosmos. And it had a really cool sort of enhanced artwork drawing of Einstein's face on the front. It actually appeared in the display window at the University of Minnesota. This was a few years after I had graduated, though, so I didn't get to see it. But that was my alma mater, the University of Minnesota. One story that sticks out in my mind, now I just got an email from one of the editors who worked there when I originally started writing there. I'm not going to name names here, but I remember his name was Norval, or this is his email name, and I remember Bob O, Roland P, I remember Brent R, and I even remember the president of the corporation, Larry J, who sat, they interviewed me about one of my books once because they were kind of skeptical as to the accuracy of the content. So they kind of interrogated me in the president's office, and the president sat up there with his feet on his desk, and he was eating pretzels. And at the end he said, "You passed, Stan." But this was during a very peculiar event. I had written a book that was so large that their editorial staff was overwhelmed by the task of putting it together, so they invited me up there to spend a month serving literally as one of the editors of my own book. And so I got to see that. It was kind of a rambling old house in a place that doesn't look too much different from the black holes of Dakota Territory here. Look. The climate a little bit different, I suppose. And down in Waynesboro, they had a YMCA, and I swam down there, and I ate at a restaurant next door to the hotel that they put me up in, and I was doing all right at the time. Things were rather difficult because I was living in the Florida Keys and wasn't used to the climate there as opposed to the climate change when I went up in February to Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania. But I got over it. I was too busy editing my own book to worry about the weather. And at least it wasn't hurricane season down there. The house that I lived in down there, I was living in for nothing plus utilities, courtesy of my old employer, Jack G., who to whom some of my books are now dedicated. He was one of my greatest mentors, and taught me that I can call my own shots. This is a free country, and indeed it still is. A lot of people think it's not. The people in the country, whether or not they are free, is more or less up to them, although some people are born into better circumstances than others, and I know all of this and all of that. But I just wanted to be remembered to my colleagues at Tab Books, which was bought out by McGraw-Hill sometime around 1992 or thereabouts. But the Tab division remained stationed in Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania until 1996, when they closed that house and let go of most of the editorial staff because they didn't want to move to New York City from a country town like Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania. The same sort of thing seems to be occurring now at McGraw-Hill, another little revolution. In the end, that proved to be very good for my career, to be acquired by McGraw-Hill. Similar things now are apparently happening with Radio Shack, which may be bought up by Sprint. And these companies, they change, they morph, and authors must change and morph along with them. But authors don't have to follow the same publisher all the time either. And this author, I've been at this racket now for 30 years. And this is a particularly difficult time for me in more ways than one. But there is a new book project on the horizon that shows great promise. And one of the ideas that I got under the influence of this awful clonazepam, look it up, it's a benzodiazepine prescribed by my physician, misprescribed one might say because it doesn't address the true cause of the problem. One of the better decisions I made was to bring on board this co-author for this book, which we will now embark upon as we work with each other across the pond. He's in England. I don't think he remembers Tab Books, but I do. I remember publishing many a book for them. I remember Roland, one of the greatest editors. He took me down to Washington, D.C. once, and we threw hot dogs at to feed the birds between the Capitol building and the White House, and then Roland threw an entire hot dog at one of the birds. And it's memories like that, you know, that you acquire over time as a writer, working with your publisher, and it's very important to always stay on good terms with your publisher. I've never had an agent for any great length of time, although I did have one when I lived in Hawaii, who did get me 2 contracts, and then the publishers rejected both works, ultimately. That agent was too good. But I've mainly worked directly with the same outfit. Is still called Tab Electronics, and it continues to exist to this day, and I'm told it will continue to exist even in the wake of the metamorphosis going on at McGraw-Hill right now, which a lot of times these things turn out good. As I said, energy is a vector, and you can choose the direction in which that vector points. I intend to choose a positive direction. So, for all you people who remember me, I've turned into a kind of a corny nutcase. Now, when I said that one of the better decisions under this clonazepam, this is another warning that I have about benzodiazepine drugs in particular. And that is, it can cause you to make some really cockamamie decisions. So do not make any major life decisions under the influence of this stuff unless you've thought it over for quite a while. But it looks like this decision is a good one, and it's still going to be published by the Tab imprint of McGraw-Hill. The Technical Advisory Board lives on. And so do I. Stan Gibilisco, signing off from the white holes of Dakota Territory, United States of anything goes. Peace out. Until next time, so long.